Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. I'm your host, Richie O'Leary, and joined today my co-host, Alec Crowhamel, and Craig Epstein. Guys, some Rutgers basketball is almost here. So let's start talking about some stuff, but actually, I take it back. I'm not used to doing this ad read, so now I have to do the ad read. This podcast is sponsored by Knight and Day Apparel. Get ready for football and tailgating season. Get ready for basketball season with Knight and Day Apparel. Our apparel is designed to keep you comfortable and stylish from the pregame excitement to the final whistle. Whether you're growing in the parking lot or cheering from the stands, our high-quality gear has you covered and with unbeatable comfort and team spirit. Score big this season and keep chopping or pounding nails with Knight and Day Apparel. Use promo code Rutgers Rivals for 10% off your purchase. We are also sponsored by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. Oh, God, this is a mouthful. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, NHL to entertainment, and even political props. That's just weird, but sure. Head to BetOnline today. Get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Rutgers basketball. Back to the good stuff. Guys, what are your kind of just high-level thoughts? I mean, this tournament or bust, right? No? Final Four bust?
No, I would say so. Going into the season, I think we all, when we first heard Ace and Dylan first coming to Piscataway, we were kind of, riding that wave, saying, oh my God, this could be a ceiling of a Final Four team, possible a national championship team, which I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. I think, when you have two top recruits, possibly two of the top three NBA draft picks potentially coming up, there's reason for a lot of optimism. I mean, this could potentially be one of, if not like, it's tough to say, better than the 76 Final Four team, but this could be, one of the all-time great seasons in Rutgers basketball history, just in the sole fact that we're going to watch guys like Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper for this season. So that alone right there is just reason to go to just as many games as you possibly can. But I also think this will be a solid team looking at the schedule. We'll probably get into that a little bit more later, but I mean, they start off obviously with Wagner, which I think, everybody's going to want to go to because that's going to be, get things off on the right foot. The place is going to be hyped. It's going to be unlike anything probably we've ever seen before. And even back in the St. John's scrimmage, it was the most press that Rutgers has had probably ever. So right then and there, this is going to be a different kind of season on the banks. So it's just, I mean, you come for Ace and Dylan, but you stay for the great basketball that you're going to see. Now, is it going to be a Final Four, a championship level team? I mean, well, I think we should worry about that, more as time goes on. Let's see how this team meshes, let's see how things go first. But I think there's a lot of optimism going into the season.
Alec, any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, a lot of what Craig said. It's probably going to be the most anticipated Rutgers basketball season, at the very least in the modern era. It feels like they have some of the top high-level talent in the conference and maybe even in the country with the two Ace and Dylan. But I think the big swing factor is the shooting around them mainly, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we go on too. But there's going to be the Big Ten is going to be a complete rock fight day in day out. I know Pikel says all the time there's no nights off, but I think this season there really are no nights off. I mean, looking at the KenPom preseason rankings, and I know it's preseason rankings, so you have to take them with a little bit of grain of salt. I mean, the lowest ranked Big Ten team is, I believe, still Washington from the preseason rankings at 76. And that's the lowest ranked team in an 18-team Big Ten. So Purdue's the highest ranked team at 10, and then I don't believe there's any other teams in the top 30. I think Ohio State's actually exactly at 30. But, I mean, that just says how deep the Big Ten is this year. So it's going to be tough to really put together a lot of consistent outputs when you're facing so many good teams. But, yeah, I think Rutgers really has a chance to have one of its best seasons ever, really, with the talent that they have this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, just like Craig said, potentially not one, but two top three NBA draft picks. I don't think you've ever seen a talent like Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper at Rutgers, maybe ever. I know it says a lot, but like it's a lot to say, I should say. But they are just extremely talented. Like people don't understand how good Ace is. His shot selection's awful, but he's still like you saw him in the St. John's game. He's still nailing like crazy jumpers. Like, and yeah, he'll take a lot of stupid shots. He'll take a lot of dumb shots, but I think if he can get that under control, I think the sky is the limit for him. And then Dylan is just an all-around point guard. He's Jalen Brunson and James Harden mixed, kind of, I guess. It's like point guard James Harden, early career James Harden, not scorer James Harden, completely different player now. And then he's also bigger than Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson's small, like not small, but he's not 6'6" like Dylan is. Like Dylan's got the skill set that like every player dreams of, and it's an all-around complete player. But between those two, like I guess, how do you see these guys performing in year one, their only year probably with Rutgers?
We kind of talked about it probably even before they got here. I think the fact that they played so much, both together and on opposite ends of the court, just so much that it shouldn't take much, if any, time at all to gel, just because they're so familiar with each other and they've played with each other so much. They know each other's tendencies. I mean, we saw it back in the St. John scrimmage where I think Dylan threw up an alley-oop for Ace, and it's just like these two guys, even though basketball is a type of game where I think as a team, Rutgers will probably take a bit of time to gel. But I think these two guys are just gonna, click just like that, and it's gonna be like dynamite right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say other than they will probably be 2 lottery picks, probably top 5 picks, even that, in the NBA draft. I mean, we talked with Ben Pfeiffer last week about just how high level of talent they are, and we don't see that not just at Rutgers, but in the Big Ten all that much. I mean, the Big Ten is predicated on these 4-year guys, size, strength, dumping it down low, play tough defense, kind of similar to football, like slow the game down, things like that. So it's kind of going to be a culture shock, I think, to the rest of the conference. Kind of similar to what we saw. Granted, they didn't win too many games or have too much of a run out of Micah Shrewsbury and Penn State a couple years ago, where they kind of changed things and how the Big Ten likes to play, and they kind of caught everybody off guard. Not just because of that play style, but also obviously their talent too. They could really make some huge noise in the conference, and you're seeing some of the awards come in, or preseason awards come in too. I mean, you got Dylan Harper on a lot of people's all Big Ten first team lists, Ace Bailey in there too. Just the talent level of these two, and I think they mesh well together because Dylan Harper, he, like Richie, you said, he is that point guard, but he can also kind of play off the ball too and help set up other people when he doesn't have the ball in his hands too. And I'm a little bit interested to see how Ace does when Dylan primarily has the ball in his hands. He'll be the primary ball handler. I'm curious to see how that works, but just having him as a spot-up threat with his shot-making ability, I mean, it's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I think Ben mentioned it on our last podcast, but like Ace, if you realize, looking back, like his AAU team, Athletes of Tomorrow, looking at his high school team, Ace has always had the ball in his hand no matter what. So it is interesting to see him play more off-ball. But you also see that shooting ability, like last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, where St. John's like wide open in the corner and nails a 3. Pulls up from like almost the Jersey Mike's logo and just nails it. He's done that before. Like even in high school, he's actually pulled up from the Jersey Mike's logo and just nailed it. Like I said, his shot selection it's cringy. I hate it. I almost despise it but he nails those shots. So like I think I was sitting next to you guys at the game, and like that one mid-range shot against St. John's, I'm like, oh no, you know what? It went in. I don't care anymore. Like, it's like insane.
There's no such thing as a bad made shot.
I know, but it's like they're so contested. Like even the 3-pointer from the wing, or like the deep wing, he's like 1-on-3 running up the court in transition, and he just pulls, and I'm like, dude, wait for the team, and he hits it. I'm like, you know what? And then it goes viral. But
I also feel like you're underselling just how insane that mid-range shot he had was. I mean, he's dribbling to his right, stops his dribble. I think he almost traveled, but didn't. Picks up his dribble, like goes across his body, rises up with a defender right in his face, and just drains it like it's nothing. Even Sam Vecini, one of the draft analysts for The Athletic, made a whole breakdown on it. Like that is just
hour-long breakdown on an exhibition. Like that's insane. That you don't understand how much hype there's going to be. They lost, and there's still shit. Like I know it didn't count, but like there was so much hype for a loss. Like it was.
Yeah,
insane.
we saw in the threads. I was gonna say we saw in the threads people were like, "I'm more excited after that loss than I've been after some wins." After especially last year.
Because when's the last time? Actually, Alex, you would know because you tweeted it. When's the last time Rutgers scored that many points in a half? When's the last time they scored that many points in a game?
Yeah, it was a while. I think I don't have the tweet up right now, but I believe what I said was it was Coppin State back in the 2022-23 season. That was the last time they scored that many points in a first half.
That's like this is going to be an insane team. Like Steve Pikiell's never had a team average 70+. Like this is going to be fun. Anyway, Now, say these guys are off. Actually, before I even get to that, I guess where do you kind of go for these two combined points per game? Because it's going to be a high offensive output. I want to say 30's the bare minimum, right?
Yeah, that's what I
I
was thinking.
think.
Like,
Or is
yeah,
that like the median maybe? Like is 30 like the median and like they could get 35 per game total? Between the two of them, obviously.
I'm kind of thinking 30. Yeah, I think asking them to get 15 points apiece night after night, I think that's pretty much the baseline.
Yeah, I think that's fair because I mean you're thinking about it. I don't think either of them are going to go off for like 30 each on a night, but either one of them can get 20 and the other one get like 13 or whatever. Um, Ace has that microwave ability, and obviously Dylan, he may not score as much at times because he's also a great distributor. I think he also can take over games at certain points and stack up points quickly too. I mean, Ace, he missed his first 4 shots from the floor, and then he went on a streak of going 8 for 10 after he missed his first 4 shots, including all those shots that we already talked about earlier. I really think he has the ability to drop 30 on any given night. I guess it just kind of it'll hinge on how well Dylan can distribute and also balance scoring as well, because I think he has the ability to do both.
Yeah, no, of course. Now, before we move on from these two, because I know this is what it's going to be like every week, because these are going to be the two guys we're talking about every week. I don't know. This is no diss on the rest of the team. It's just that these are two superstar athletes Rutgers has never had before. I can't reiterate that enough. Like Ace Bailey had a game in high school where he had 4 dribbles and dropped 30 points. Right? He dribbled the ball do the math. Like that's insane to have 4 dribbles. So it is but to who I guess out of those two, Ace is probably the one that's gonna, like you might said before, he's the more microwave type player that's gonna just explode for points. What's the highest point total that they're gonna have in a single game? I guess you could say each of them, because I think Dylan could go off for like a 20, 30 point game maybe. But like,
Are you
what do you
saying
think
like
Ace is
combined?
like? No, like a single game. Like, what's the highest point total that Ace is gonna have or Dylan's gonna
Ace.
have?
Oh, both or
You
either
could say
one.
both. Yeah, you could go both. I think Ace has the higher scoring ability, so I would say Ace is probably going to have he's going to have at least one 30-point game in my opinion.
I could see like potentially like a 45-point game out of one of them.
You think so? Really? That's a lot.
Wow.
Against, I don't think it's going to be against a great team, but yeah, I could see it though, where it's just riding the hot hand and you're facing maybe a lesser team, and it's just like 40. I could see one of them potentially dropping 40 to 45.
I think Ace drops 35 one game. I don't know if Dylan has quite that same ceiling, just because he's going to be distributing a lot too as the point guard. So he may have more points generated than just points scored, basically. Than Ace, I think, at their highest levels. I think Dylan could definitely go for like 25 multiple games, really, because he has that like steady presence too, where it's like he plays the game at his own pace and controls it himself. So I think he's the more steady scorer and distributor, but Ace, I think, has the ability to explode for like 35 on any given night.
I know we talk so positively about these guys, but they do have their flaws. What would you say like their biggest flaws are? Because for me, I would say Ace, obviously, I've said it multiple times already. His shot selection is cringy. I think his handles are okay. They're not great for a guy he does have like a guard-like skill set, but he doesn't have great handles either. And he's able to control the ball, but he also is able to turn it over quite a bit too.
Yeah, I think
I agree
with Ace, it's that. Oh, sorry, Craig.
You
said, it's like, it's like those things that you said. Also, I feel like he needs to get to the rim more. Like we said with that one mid-range shot he took, he picked up his dribble while he was going downhill towards the rim. I think he needs to use his fluidity and his frame a little bit more and get to the rim. And that's something that Ben talked about last week too, where it's like he's not the best like explosive athlete, but he's really fluid with his size, and that's what he uses to his advantage. And I think he just needs to get to the rim a little bit more to make opponents fear his outside shot even more, just by knowing that he can blow by you and dunk on you. I think he needs to use that more. And for Dylan, I would say he's not the highest level athlete, and that's more of on a pro level. But also I'm curious to see how his jump shot kind of develops throughout the year. He looks pretty good with it against St. John's. But of course he's a freshman, so we're not going to see the same ups and downs game in, game out. That was kind of one of his weaknesses coming out of high school too. His jumper isn't the most developed, so I'm curious to see how that goes as the season goes on. But Yeah, those are my main some of the drawbacks, at least on offense for these two guys.
Yeah, I think when it comes to them, they could potentially be exposed by in a similar aspect in the Big Ten, but for kind of different reasons. Whereas Ace is kind of obviously a skinnier type guy, and he's obviously very tall, and rebounding wise, he impressed us a little bit more than we thought he would be when it came to rebounding. But you can't depend on Ace Bailey to
Mm-hmm.
be a big time rebounder for this team, because if you do, then there's a real big problem with the center position, but we could get into that later on. So I think that's potentially
Yeah.
that's potentially an area he could just the Big Ten is basically the land of the Giants. Like he's probably going to get knocked around a bit, and
Mhm.
more than he's probably ever gotten knocked around before. So that could potentially see how he reacts to that. And for Dylan, even though he has obviously, I think he has an NBA level like body right now. He's about to go on a grind in, like I said, in a very just big conference, can be a very physical conference. It's a grind to do. So his style of play, where it's kind of weaving your way, figuring out defenses, trying to get to the hole, that he'll probably, he could do that in his sleep against the Wagners, the St. Peters, the Merrimacks, the Monmouths, those type of teams. But once you start facing the Ohio States, the Purdues, the Illinois, night after night, that can start to wear on you. And for a guy who still at the end of the day is a freshman, who is about to go on a grind he's probably never gone on. Well, he actually does play a lot of basketball, but against college level competition, a grind that he's probably not used to, that could wear him down over time. And then you hope that towards the end of the season, he, God forbid, he starts getting banged up or whatever. You got to try and, almost like a running back, where you got to try and limit the punishment he takes, so that once you get to, February and then hopefully, March, that he's has fresh legs and can take you on a big time run.
So now we know these two are going to do their thing. Do you feel like this supporting cast around them can support them and say they have a night off? If both of them have a night off, then can these guys step up? Because you did bring in some scorers.
Oh, sorry, Alec.
I guess I'll start off. Yeah, I think they did an adequate job of doing that.
That's a good word.
Obviously, you bring in Tyson Acuff. Yeah. Tyson Acuff was the 8th leading scorer in Division I last year. Eastern Michigan, he was kind of forced to do so because they kind of didn't have anybody else. They lost Amani Bates and Noah Farrakhan, and he was kind of forced to do that. And he put up 22 points a game on some not great efficiency. But I think if you dial back the workload and kind of have him as that spark plug guy and also as a spot up guy next to Dylan at times, I think he can do a better job of upping his efficiency. You bring back Jeremiah Williams, who obviously we know what he did last year in the limited sample size that we had. He kind of, at least what people thought, saved the season at times. Sparking that 4-game win streak that they went on in the beginning of February.
Mm-hmm.
His role, I'm also curious to see, because I think he'll be in the starting lineup, no doubt, next to Dylan Harper. But how much of an impact he has on offense, I'm also curious to see. We saw he's a great driver to the rim. He has a really good floater, but his shooting isn't really there. He's not a great shooter. He's a okay shooter, but not a great one. You talk about Zach Martini. He's also more of that spot up guy. Get him in the corner and get him an open three, and you're golden. He's a solid. He was one of the more solid shooters to come out of the portal, coming out of Princeton. And PJ Hayes, I think, is going to be playing a big role on this team as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he is on some of the closing lineups for Rutgers. Yeah. I think that'll depend on his defense. He's been a really good shooter everywhere he's been. But again, it's kind of the other parts of his game I'm curious to see how they kind of develop out. He's a bigger wing, so I'm curious to see how that works on defense. And also, if he does have the ball in his hands to try to get to the rim as well. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But, I think they did a good job of bringing in complementary guys. I guess we'll have to see how it works out because, you're not going to bring in one of those big fish out of the portal from from a mid-major where he averaged 18 points a game and led his team to the tournament. You're not going to bring in one of those guys when you have Ace and Dylan. So I think they did a good job of bringing in complementary pieces, and now it's just a matter of how they all mesh together.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting aspect where they did, I think, build a very deep team to, take at least some of the load off of Ace and Dylan. Yeah, Ace and Dylan night after night. But I think I almost screwed it up again, but it's okay. But I think it's hard with two superstars. It's kind of hard to believe that at least one of them will. It's hard to believe that both of them will have really an off night. But if it does happen, it's tough. It's tough because I think they're going to be a team where they're night after night. It's like this is going to be their identity. Is it's going to be ace and Dylan. Every team is going to know going into the game, these are the two guys that you have to watch out for. So it'll be interesting. That's where I think some of the meshing and some of the captain, some of the leaders will have to take over in case both of these guys have an off night. Because I think they're just going to be so dependent on these two guys to, really, carry. I don't want to say carry the team, but be like the leaders of night after night. That where do you turn to if both of them have a bad night? I think Jeremiah Williams will be a type of guy who you turn to. I think Zach Martini will be the type of guy you turn to. But from a shoot, and if they both have a bad night, I could see this becoming almost like a Steve Peichel, type game where it's just basically drag them into the mud and make this into a real rock fight. And we've seen in the past, it didn't work so much last year, but we've seen throughout Peichel's history that he's been able to, grind out wins this way. So we'll see. We'll have to see what happens there. But like I said, it's just really, I don't know. To me, it's hard to believe that both of them will have just, a really bad night.
Biggest question mark for the team this year, I would have to say, I mean, we could all debate on this. It'd probably be the center position, though, if I had to guess. That's at least my opinion. I think the center position is still up in the air. I think Emmanuel Ogbol, if you saw the clips that we posted on our YouTube channel, if you haven't checked it out, go check them out. I have all his clips of every play that he was kind of involved in on offense and defense. And there was some good moments. There were some really bad moments. I feel like he does. I know he doesn't know the game because he's still learning. He's very new to the game. But in terms of like hedging on screens, there was one where he didn't hedge, and then the guy just the guy's wide open. And there's the one that he does hedge, and then the guy just cuts to the rim and backdoors him basically. And it's like, okay, wide open. There you go, layup. Defensively, he's up and down. Rebounding, he's up and down. Am I wrong in just saying that's probably the biggest question mark? Is there another question mark on the team that you guys see that's bigger?
I mean, I think it is the biggest question mark. There are other question marks, obviously, too, the shooting, the experience, some of the other pieces as well. But I think it's the biggest question mark because they don't have the experience at the center position. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it may not matter at times just because they have the high-level talent elsewhere, but you do need to play defense and rebound at the rim if you want to win in the Big Ten. That's just how the conference is, and that's what it's built on. So it is, I would say, the biggest question mark. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to develop throughout the season. I don't know if we see Lathan Somerville start at all, or maybe in January to start Big Ten play. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's definitely a question mark. And also Martini. Yeah, we actually saw a good amount of Martini at the 5 at times against St. John's. And I thought he played pretty well. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's sustainable just because he doesn't really have the size, but he has the box out ability, I would say. But yeah, Rutgers got out rebounded badly by St. John's. So I guess we'll have to see how the center position shakes out. I think Emmanuel Ogbole can be serviceable as the season goes on. Like you said, he's still new to the game. He's still learning it. And I think having a full offseason after, having a fully healthy offseason is big too, just because he can focus on purely getting better and growing as a player instead of having to rehab and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think he can be serviceable. I mean, you don't really need that much from him. You just need him to not foul out. You need him to get rebounds when he's in position. Obviously, get in position for rebounds, and then make some easy shots at the rim. You're not going to trust him to be a back-to-the-basket post player, like we saw with Cliff Amori at times throughout his Rutgers career. I just don't think that's going to be a part of the offense at all, because I don't think they are going to want him to do that, because I don't think they trust him to do it, because I don't think that's his game. I know it's a very long run-on sentence, but yeah, I think he just needs to be a solid occasional rim runner, rim protector, just stay on the court and don't be a negative, basically. I mean, that's what it boils down to. If he can stay as like to take a baseball term, like a zero war player, like an average center, basically. I think that's what all they need.
Craig, let me ask you this. Does Emmanuel Ogbole start the entire season?
No.
Or does he get replaced?
No, I think here's the thing. So talking about the center position, I don't want to
adamant no, just to be clear.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was like we're ready to go.
I don't think so, no. But this is the thing about the center position for me, is that I don't want to panic too much, obviously, in the preseason, but I do think that is the thing that could end up holding this team back, is the fact that now, if I want to look at it from a glass half full perspective, They got a easy, easy start the season out of conference before you go to Vegas. So that gives you some time, to hopefully Jay Young works his magic, gets Agbali and Somerville, get him to like you said, Alec, get him to just being a serviceable big man, because that's all really Rutgers needs is a guy to set screens, get rebounds, and you've talked about in the past, Richie, the scoring is like the least of the worries when it comes to the center position. Like if you score, that's just an added bonus. But like I said, when it comes to the center position, we saw Agbali when in the St. John's game. It's just the rebounding was just not there, and it really cost them. Even though it was a scrimmage, Rutgers had a pretty good lead in that game, but it was just evaporated like that because of the rebounding, and that's a part that kind of worries me. The fact that Rutgers scored, it was like 80 plus points, and they still lost. And again, it's a scrimmage. The defense is probably not going as hard as they possibly can, but that is just kind of I think we've learned in the past year with our teams that when there's a little chink in the armor, you really gotta look at it and kind of get rid of it before it snowballs into becoming something big. So the center position does worry me a bit. So I'm sure we'll talk about it more throughout the year, but I'll be honest, I am a little bit worried about it.
All right, one more thing before we go into predictions. Alec, biggest hot take on this year's team?
I guess this kind of factors into the predictions that we'll get to, and I don't know how hot of a take it is, but I think Ace Bailey leads the team in rebounding.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know how hot of a take it is, but I think he leads the team in rebounding because he's just going to be playing on the perimeter a lot. And I think he'll fly in for a lot of those rebounds that bounce high off the rim. I think Agbole, if he can, really get in good position, he may not be in position to get some of those high rebounds, but I think Ace Bailey will just, kind of fly in out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. I think he has the potential to get some offensive boards too if he does still develop that game going towards the rim. That's my hot take. I think Ace Bailey leads the team in rebounding this year.
I wouldn't say it's like a super hot take, but it's like ordering buffalo wings and saying I want mild. No, that's not a thing.
I'll see if I can think of a hotter one. That was just the first one that came.
No. It was solid though. I thought that was a good take actually. Craig, what do you think?
I think I don't know how much of a hot take it is, but I kind of was thinking, definitely watching the St. John scrimmage and just the type of guy that he is, that Jordan Durkak will get more minutes than any of us ever expected when we first came here.
You stole my hot take.
Just knowing Peichel, knowing the type of player that he likes, and knowing the type of player that looks like Jordan Durkak is, that I think he's going to get. I'm not going to say he's going to lead the team in minutes or anything like that, but I think when he first came in and we were like, this could just be kind of a down more towards the end of the bench type of player. Now I could see him definitely playing some more minutes and being potentially like the defensive stopper, the type of guy where you put him on their, one of their better players to really just, be that defensive guy.
Kind of. See, I got to think of something different because you took mine a little bit. I was going to say something about Jordan Durkak, and this is a spicy one. I'm just going to say, I think Durkak's a better mold of a player and a better fit for Steve Peichel's system than Jeremiah Williams. I think he's a better defender. I think he's more all over the place when it comes to rebounding, and he's not going to score as much as Jeremiah Williams. I think Jeremiah Williams is a better scorer overall. But when it comes to being close to the rim, I think he's craftier around the rim. We saw that 1-and-1 this past, or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever the fucking game was. I don't remember. Against St. John's. But he's crafty, and he's got good. He can dribble. He can hold on to the ball. He plays defense. He's diving on the floor. He's rebounding. I think he's a better hot take, mind you. This is not like a fact, but I think he could be a better version of Jeremiah Williams. So it's that one's a little spicy. I'm not gonna lie. But anyway, starting lineup predictions. Let's start with that. I don't really know what's gonna look like. I thought I knew it, but then I saw the St. John starting lineup, and then I'm like, I don't know anything anymore. So, what do you guys think?
I think I'm gonna stick to the expectation. I think St. John's are trying to work with a few different things, trying to experiment. I thought Craig asked Steve Peichel a really good question after the game, where it's like, how do you balance trying to get that different kinds of wrinkles in because it's a scrimmage versus trying to work on and win the game, obviously, and then work on some of the things that you have been practicing. But I think it goes to expectations for the first game at the very least. I think it's Dylan Harper, Jeremiah Williams, Ace Bailey, Zach Martini, and Emmanuel Agbole. to start Wagner at least. Now, it could change. Honestly, it could change game by game. We've seen Steve Peichel, especially early in seasons, kind of experiment with some starting lineups, but I think those are the 5 that take the floor against Wagner.
Okay, Craig.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with that 5, just because knowing Peichel, it's like he kind of leans in the beginning of the season more on the guys who have other than obviously Ace and Dylan, who are the superstars. But we've seen in the past where you kind of earn your way onto the starting lineup. We saw it with like Cliff really early on, where it was like he was behind. I think it was Miles Johnson. It's just you kind of earn your way on. So I think he's going to start with more of a veteran lineup with, like you said, Jeremiah Williams, Zach. And even though Zach Martini hasn't been there that long, Zach Martini. But I think we've seen in the past that although the starting lineup is, it's a good thing to have. Like this team is going to have so many different like rotations, so many different like just different things that I think it's not about who starts. I think it's about who ends up with. We'll see it with more minutes.
Yeah. I'm indifferent because I think out of conference play, he might just stick with the lineup he had to start against St. John's, just because they're not big. Like all these out of conference teams, I think I was looking before, Wagner's biggest dude is like 6'8". So technically you can even get away with Zach Martini in that one at the 5, but I'm going to say it's probably going to be, I'm trying to think. I think 3-guard lineup and then Ace at the 4 and then probably Emmanuel at the 5. 3 guards obviously would be Dylan, Jeremiah, and I think he's going to start out with J-Mike. I think he likes J-Mike a lot. I really do. And I think they'll probably keep that lineup for a little bit, especially for Kennesaw State, because I think you have to start J-Mike and Ace Bailey for that game. It's more of like a homecoming. But I do think it's going to switch throughout the year. There's too many options here. Like if Tyson Avecuff's fully healthy, he could be a starter. I might even start him over over J-Mike. And then you have more scoring ability because then you have Jeremiah, who scored double digits last year. Ace, who's going to score double digits. Dylan, who's going to score double digits. Tyson. That's if you want an offensive firepower. If you want more defense, you put in J-Mike. You put in Durkak. There's too many rotations to pick from, and I think that's going to be really challenging for Steve, just to figure that one out personally. But I'm not going to do 1 point leader. Well, not just 1 points per game leader. I want to hear your top 3 points per game leaders because we know who probably 1 and 2 are, and you can interchange both of them technically, but that third one's where it gets real tricky. So, Alec, give me your top 3 points per game leaders this season.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be, Ace and Dylan 1 and 2. I think they'll be pretty close to each other, honestly, just kind of because of what I said earlier, where Ace might have the more explosion games, while Dylan might be more consistent with his scoring output. I kind of have another. I don't know how hot of a take it is, honestly. I think the third leading scorer could be PJ Hayes, just because he's going to get a lot of manufactured shots for him, and I think obviously he's shown to be a really good shooter at other levels as well. So I think PJ Hayes is the third leading scorer for this team. I guess 2 mild takes equals 1 hot take.
There you go.
No, you had pretty much the same exact thought, because I think PJ Hayes, assuming, obviously from what we've seen so far, he looks like he's going to be a real good shooter. Now, when the season starts and he's now in the grind of the Big Ten schedule, will that continue? We'll wait and see. But assuming and hopefully assuming that he is the 3-point shooter that we all hope he can be, he's going to be taking probably a high volume of 3-point shots, especially with guys like Dylan, Jeremiah, Acuff, maybe like we said, Durkak, being guys that really take the ball to the hole. So that can open things up for PJ Hayes to kind of just sit in the corner and just start shooting threes and, hopefully making them and having the place go crazy. So assuming he does take a high volume of threes and makes a high volume of threes, I think that's just going to, just build and build. And he's going to end up being the third leading scorer for this team.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you guys on Ace and Dylan. I'm going to say different on the third one, though. I'm going Tyson Acuff. As long as he's fully healthy, I can't see a reason why he's not going to either be a starter or 6-man. This is a guy who was in starting rotations throughout practices this offseason before the injury. Obviously, the injury slowed him down a bit, but he's just a high-volume, high-scoring guard. Like, he can do just about anything. He can score from just about anywhere. I know his numbers weren't phenomenal last year, but even on 19 attempts per game is wild, number one. But on 19 attempts per game, he shot 43%. Now his 3-point percentage at 29 is not great, but the year before he averaged 14 points per game, 11 shots a game, 46% from the field, 34 from 3. He has the ability to score at a high level. I really think there's a good chance he's probably averaging close to, if not double digits, when it's all said and done. And I think he'll be your third guy. But rebounds per game, I know, Alec, you already said probably Ace at number 1. Yeah. Who would be your number 2 then?
I think number 2 is going to be Ogbole, just because he's going to be the big man down low. He's going to be in position to get a bunch of rebounds. And if this team can continue to play good defense, I think he'll have the opportunity to get a lot of rebounds. Number 3, excuse me, allergies are really striking hard right now in October.
Feel your
pain.
November.
Number 3, I got a little bit of a weird one. I don't know why, but I'm thinking Dylan Harper could be.
I agree with that.
3.
Yeah.
Just because he has the size advantage over a lot of his matchups, and he plays close to the rim as well. I think we could see Dylan Harper. I could also switch in Zach Martini there, because if he plays the 4 a lot, he'll have a similar size advantage while also being a strong rebounder, especially for the power forward position. We saw him do a lot of work on the offensive boards too. I think Martini. I'm going to say Martini leads the team in offensive boards, but I think he's the 4th leading rebounder in general on the team. I think that's where I'm going with this.
All right. Craig, what do you got?
Or do you want like all 3, or do you just want?
You could just. I mean, up to you.
I was just gonna say, like I said, the rebounding again worries me. I think, but whoever plays center, I think probably will lead the team in rebound, just because it's it's basically what you're asking for from these guys. And even though it's probably going to be, I think, a bit of a struggle, I think whoever it is, whether it's Agbali or Somerville, will eventually, and at the end of the day, lead the team in rebounds. And then I think Ace, I think Martini will probably be number 2, actually. I think he's the type of guy who will also be have his nose around there a lot, and could potentially even play some of the 5 this year. Now, I don't think Rutgers should depend on that, because I think if we get to a point where Rutgers is depending on Martini to play in the 5, then we've got a bit of a problem. But I do think he is going to get his fair share of rebounds. And I agree with you, Alec. I think Dylan Harper, even though he's not 7 feet tall, I think with his size and strength, I think he is going to be the type of guy who knows where to be when it comes to rebounds, and will get his fair share of rebounds, and then push the ball up the floor, and look for some maybe go some coast to coast. So it'll be interesting. The rebounding is definitely going to be something to watch for Rutgers this year.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a team effort, and I'm a little surprised. No Dirkak mentions. The dude had 7 against St. John's, led the team. I know most of them were on the defensive end. They had little to 0 rebounds on the offensive end. Actually, Martini had 3 of his 4 rebounds on the offensive end. But besides the point, I think you're spot on with Ace probably leading the team in rebounding. I think next up is probably going to be Dylan. I think Dylan at 2 it's a little of a spicy take, but I think Dylan at 6'6" length, he's always going to be around the ball. He's always going to be around the rim. He's a good defender. He knows how to play the game overall. And I think he's just going to be there for rebounds. What did he average in high school? He averaged a damn near double-double, right? If not close. I don't recall what his exact numbers were, but he was putting up double-doubles consistently. So I think there's a good shot Dylan's 2. 3 is where it's a giant question mark. You would think it would be a big man. So you would think Emmanuel Ogbole. You would think Zach Martini. I just don't know who that 3rd guy is going to be rebounding. I mean, I think either night, it could be either one of those 2. I think there's going to be nights where Jordan Dirkak's going to be leading rebounder like he was last week or 2 weeks ago. I keep forgetting when that game was. I think there's other moments where Jeremiah Williams gets a lot of rebounds. So it really goes back and forth with that 3rd one. I don't think there's a solid 3rd option, but for guessing sake and prediction sake, I'll just say probably say Emmanuel Ogbole, just because he's the big man. He'll be down there. That's all I'm asking him to do. Dude, just put your hands up, grab the ball.
At Bosco last year, according to edgy.com, Dylan averaged 2.5 rebounds a game, but looking at his game log, there were a lot of games where he had 0, and then a lot of games where he'd have 7 or 8. So he has that ability. He went through a really long stretch in January where I'm not sure what the deal was. I don't know if the rebounds weren't getting recorded or if he just wasn't getting them or what, where he had 0. I think it was a 8, 9, 10 game stretch where he had 0. So I don't know if that was just because it wasn't getting recorded, but that was also in January when he was dealing with a little tweak in his knee. So maybe that had something to do with it. His scoring was a little bit down too. But yeah, he definitely had the ability to. I mean, his last 3 games, 7, 8, and 9. His first few games, 8, 5, 6, 8. So he has that ability.
I mean, he had 6 in the McDonald's game. What do you have in the Jordan Brand Classic? I mean, he has that. He definitely, yeah, you're right. I don't want to harp on this. This is just a stupid thing to harp on at this point. But yeah,
he was also playing next to a 7-footer too. So I'm sure
I was thinking that, yeah,
that helped too.
Yeah, I forgot Kiner Asperilla, who's now at St. Peter's Prep, I think.
Yes,
it's amazing that Rutgers really isn't showing interest in him. I don't understand really why, but whatever. Besides the point. Assists, probably Dylan.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's a pretty easy bet when the guy who's probably going to have the ball in his hands like 95% of the time is dishing out the assists.
So who's second in assists? That's where it gets a little complicated.
Yeah, probably I'm going to say Jeremiah Williams because he's probably going to have the ball in his hands the second most amount. And then I think Acuff is probably going to be third just because he'll have like the third most amount. Because it's just crazy how they have basically three guys who can, maybe four even if you count Durkek, that could probably be the
J-Mike.
J-Mike I guess, but
Ace,
I think to a lesser extent.
I was gonna say
I think Ace could be up there.
Ace could factor in there as well because obviously he's gonna have the ball in his hands plenty as well, and they're going to dish the ball out a lot, and Ace isn't only going to shoot, so I think he could be in contention as well. So there's a lot of guys behind Dylan that could factor in. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. That one's a little tough.
Yeah, I should have said this one after points per game, but field goal percentage, and obviously minimum, like not someone that's shooting one shot per game. Like let's talk about a guy that's actually averaging like 4 or 5 shots per game at least.
No, yeah, I think that'll probably be Dylan just because of the not just the amount of shots he'll take, but because of probably the percentage, like we talked about with Ace, where he'll take a lot of shots. He'll take also a lot of bad shots that will, that more often than not will go in, but taking a lot of bad shots, some of them won't go in either. So I just think the volume between the volume and the quality of shots he's taking, I think Dylan will probably lead the team in that.
What are we talking about qualifying here in terms of volume?
Like you have to shoot at least 4 or 5 a game. Like you can't be shooting like technically last year's shot leader or percentage leader was Zach Hayne. He had one shot, I think.
Yeah, it's tough. I just don't know if he'll get the volume, but I think Emmanuel Bole is just going to get enough easy shots manufactured for him at the rim that he can do it. I think Miles Johnson shot like 70% from the floor one year.
Yeah.
Past that, if he doesn't get that same volume, I think I want to say Zach Martini because in the same way he's mostly like a 3-pointer or at the rim type player, but at the same time, 3-pointers are it's a high variable type of shot, obviously. So that could hurt him, but I guess he'll barely qualify for our like minimum volume. I'll say Emmanuel Bole.
Yeah, Miles Johnson 62.8% in 2020-2021. So I mean that's damn high. I wanted to say Martini too, but I just think when he's factor in 3-point shots, it's like he's gonna miss some. Like obviously, I think PJ Hayes should be up there too. Probably. I just think he's so like his shot is just fucking pure. Like it is beautiful, and he doesn't miss. The guy, what did he hit? He hit every shot right against St. John's. Yeah,
he was perfect from the floor.
Yeah, 4 of 4 from the floor, 2 of 2 from 3. Like if he's open, he's not missing. Like he's going to be such a good factor. But kind of leads into my next argument, or not my next argument, my next prediction, 3-point percentage. I'm going PJ Hayes. Like I think without a doubt.
Me too.
Yeah, me too.
Craig? Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Second, Ace, Acuff.
Probably
Jeremiah,
Ace, I'm going to say. I'm thinking Ace.
Martini?
I'll say Martini just because he'll have a lower volume than Ace or Acuff. So I'll say Martini at second.
Okay. Now on to the nitty gritty stuff. Last but not least, the schedule. Let's start with out of conference record. There is, what am I looking at? 10 games? 11 games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12 games? 12 games. Right? Yeah, I did that right. No, 11 games. I did the math wrong again. 11 games. What do you think the record's going to be?
So I have it jotted down, but I did not do it by I didn't write down the by out of conference. So I had Wagner a win, St. Peter's win, Monmouth win, Merrimack win, Kennesaw State win. So I guess that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. 5-0. There we go. See, things are getting hyped here.
Then 1, 2, 3 in Vegas.
Yeah. So the
we
Vegas
don't know that
thing,
third team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
the
They changed it, right?
Yeah.
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 But I was going to say about. Oh, if you want to talk about the.
Just give me your Craig. Give me your overall like out of conference record. There's 11 games. What is your record?
I think I have them winning just about all of them. I think because I have Seton Hall win, Princeton win, Columbia win.
You know they play Alabama, right?
Oh no, right. You know, I forgot about the Vegas thing. So I was going to talk about the Vegas thing, where I was going to say that the Vegas trip kind of has me nervous, to be honest, because
Mm-hmm.
not even just the fact that they're going to be facing, three probably really good teams, but the fact that they're taking a trip to Kennesaw State like 2 days before. Like, it's just, I get it why they're going to Kennesaw State, because it's for Ace to go see probably his family and go back home for a bit, but it just seems
I don't
like
even know
such
if
a,
you go
what?
home. Like, do you even go home at that point? You just go
I don't.
straight to Vegas and say, "Fuck
Yeah,
it." Like,
because it's like, it's almost like just jump out to a 40-point lead and then just send the guys on the plane to Vegas, because
yeah,
it's crazy. You're going from Kennesaw State to Vegas 2 days later, and you got to face Notre Dame, Bama, and they said they changed Houston, but I kind of
Yeah.
have those as all three losses, to be honest, just because I think A, you're facing really good teams, and B, they're probably just going to be wiped out from the amount of travel.
that's fair. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Give me your record prediction for
So it's okay. So
out
if
of
you can,
conference.
this
11 games. Just
8-3.
okay. Thank you. But yeah. Okay. Never
Yeah.
mind. That does work. That does add up to 11. I lied. Alec, what do you got?
Yeah, I think 8-3 is I want to say median outcome. I'm saying 9-2 just because
Mhm.
I'm obviously the optimist, as it kind of always goes. I think they lose to Alabama, and then I think they lose one more, whether it's the last game in Vegas or Notre Dame,
Mhm.
or somewhere else. Now, obviously, most of these other games, save for Seton Hall, even Seton Hall and Princeton Princeton really would be disastrous.
Mhm.
I think 9-2. I think 8-3 would be good, not great. I think 9-2. I think they go 9-2. Now, of course, this is still depending on who they face in that third game in Vegas, but I think 9-2.
So that third game now is against who are the schools? It could
I
be
think it's
Creighton.
Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon, San Diego State, Texas A&M, or Creighton. I believe all of them are pretty highly ranked. Creighton's 14, Oregon's somewhere up there.
I think they should be favored in at least two of them.
Oregon's 42 per T rank. Creighton's 14. What was that? Texas A&M's 12. And then what was the last one? San Diego State, who's usually pretty good too. 77. So they should be favored if it's that one. But
San
it
Diego
all
State
depends on
Yeah.
what they win. Like,
San Diego State and Rutgers is going to be a classic, like 54-51 game, I think, just with the way those two teams play defense. Texas A&M is interesting because they still have Wade Taylor, obviously, but they don't have some of those complementary pieces. And Wade Taylor can explode for 30-plus on any given night, but he's also kind of inefficient, too. So if they can force him into some bad shots, I think Rutgers has a chance to win that game. Creighton is what worries me. So since they're obviously always a really good team, they don't have some of the other pieces. Too. They're down Baylor Shireman. Oregon might have one of the better players in the conference and in the country in Jackson Shelstad, so that kind of worries me too. I'm assuming they're waiving the no conference opponent in MTE.
That's rule. They apparently got rid of it, supposedly.
Okay. So yeah, I think one of the four games they should be favored. I think three of the four they have still a chance to win though.
Yeah, I think if it's Creighton, you're probably shit out of luck. Kalkbrenner, however you say it, would probably dominate Rutgers. He's so interesting too because he got voted Big East Player of the Year by the coaches and the media, and
he wasn't voted all Big East.
Wasn't on the first team. Like, it makes no sense. But he's a stud. Like they have no answer for him at all. Like imagine putting Emmanuel Ogbole on him. Like it's just not going to work. Like I'm also going to go 9-2. I think the two Vegas games and. Don't get me wrong. It very well could be 10-1. I just can't see them beating Alabama. Maybe they get up and they're ready to go, but at 10 p.m. in Las Vegas, I know Alabama's also adjusting that time difference. 10 p.m. Eastern time in Las Vegas. Maybe they get up for the game against Quiff because it's a little bit of a, hey, this is our time to shine. Maybe Ace drops 40 and I'm like, you know what? I'm wrong. But it's going to be such a tough game. That Alabama team's projected to win. They're basically the Ohio State of college basketball, where they spent so much fucking money on that roster. It's insane. Alabama basketball school. Who would have thought? Nick Saban retires, and that's what happens. But I think that one's a loss. And then I just, like you said, I don't know who that other game's going to be against, so that's where I'm kind of indifferent. Like if they do go Texas A&M or Creighton, it's going to be tough. I think they could beat Oregon. I think they should beat San Diego State. So it really depends on how this works. And now the interesting thing with this is the tiebreaker. So it's obviously record-based to start, but the tiebreaker is the point differential. So if you're pouring it on like Notre Dame, you want to pour it on even more. Like, And there's a little animosity in that one too, which people forget. Micah Shrewsbury, kind of a douchebag, tried to steal Rutgers players at one point. Paul Mulcahy, Cam Spencer, kind of poked him into the portal, and that's just the way it is. So it's gonna be interesting though to see how this all plays out. Plus, holiday weekend, like are these? I know it doesn't matter, but like Steve Pikiell's always been very big on like not having these tournaments. So this is their first tournament like ever, basically. I don't remember the last time they did the MTE, but. So I'm going to go say 9-2 as well. Overall record, Big Ten record. Let's say Big Ten record first, because that it goes hand in hand, I guess. So Alec, what do you got for me for overall / Big Ten record?
This one's really tough because, like I said before, the Big Ten is just a complete meat grinder. I think, honestly, 1 through 14, maybe 3 through 14, 15 could be any given team. So it's just so hard to predict. Like, the worst team in the conference could be probably Nebraska or Northwestern, and that's still a tough team that you have to face off against. Like, Nebraska replaced Kisei Tominaga with essentially Gavin Griffiths and Connor Segan, so I'm kind of curious to see how that works out. But they still have these really high floor defensive pieces. They still have, I believe, Bryce Williams. They still have Jawan Gary. They don't have ranked master for the season, so that's a tough loss. But, yeah, it's just so tough. I really don't know where this conference is going to go as the season goes on, because so many of these teams are just more evenly matched. I'm gonna say 13-7, so that'll give them 22-9 on the regular season. That's I think that's where I'm leading.
Craig, what do you got?
Yeah, so it's funny with basketball. Trying to predict basketball like seasons is hard enough, but now that there's so many different moving parts between the Vegas trip. Now that you got the West Coast teams, you got all that travel in, and it's just like it's going to be such a crazy walk. We see what the West Coast trips kind of do to football teams with a week. Now you got teams that are flying over different time zones and playing multiple games within the same week. So it's going to be just fascinating to see how teams react to that type of travel. But like Alex said, I think it's I actually have pretty much the same record. I think I have 20. I don't know if the math was right or not, but I had 21-10, 13-7. I don't know if my math was off or if Alex's math was off or all of our math was off, because we're not math majors, so we don't know. But yeah, so I had the same. I was just gonna say. So I do have them 21-10, 13-7. I think there's a lot of games here that could potentially be could go either way. I honestly don't know. Like the Notre Dame game, for instance. I think Rutgers could definitely win that game, but it's just like I said, facing Kennesaw State 2 days earlier, then flying out to Vegas to face what's probably going to be, you think at least a decent Notre Dame team. We've seen Mika Shrewsbury coach teams are always tough to beat. So that game I chucked up to a loss, but it could like you said, with guys like Ace and Dillon, it could easily you go into basically any game thinking you got a shot with Ace and Dillon, and I think that's ultimately what we'll probably get into tournament talk a little bit later, but that's what makes it so exciting. And then you got different, and then you got there was another game I remember. The Northwestern game on the road where it's like. Rutgers, as we've seen throughout the years, has been kind of, iffy on the road. I have them at 8-7 when it comes to road and neutral games, which I think for Rutgers, as we've seen in the past, road wins are very hard to come by in the Big Ten. But I have that one as a win just because, like I said, with guys like Ace and Dillon, games like that, even though you're on the road, should be wins. Northwestern, I don't think they're going to be a great team this year. They're losing their best player in Boo Buie, so they're probably going to have kind of a down year. So I kind of think that should end up being a win. But then I remember seeing which game was it? I think it was the USC game at home, which USC is probably going to be a good team, and Rutgers obviously at home is pretty much always a good team. But then I did a little bit of a deeper dive. What was that?
I don't know about good. They're probably one of the worst in the Big Ten this year.
Well, yeah, but they got Musselman now, so we'll see how he does. But we'll see. But the thing about that game, where again the travel, where I'll be interested to see how the travel influences the teams, is Rutgers is in. Let me see. They're on the West Coast right before that. Then you're flying back home to face USC. Meanwhile, USC, who is flying, will be facing Maryland the game before that. So the team that's flying cross country to face Rutgers is actually going to be almost more acclimated to this area because they will have been in here longer. So it's just like you have all these moving parts that it's like it just makes your mind go crazy, and it's like that's what makes this so difficult. But there you go. That's my prediction: 21-10, 13-7.
Okay, I'm on the same boat as Alec here. I'm gonna say, what was it, 22-9? No, 22-9. Yeah, I think 22-9 spot on. 13-7 in conference. The Big Ten is a guessing game this year. I do think Rutgers ends up finishing in the top 3-ish maybe range. I think they're just so much better than most of these teams. Now, if you go into Big Ten and you go from maybe, let's say, 7 to 18, I don't know who the hell is going to be there, because it's just, I think Penn State, who's ranked the lowest in the Big Ten currently per T rank, I think Penn State's better than the worst team. I don't think they're the worst team by far. I think that they have a nice little lineup, and they're very defensive oriented. I think Washington's decent. I think, like Craig said, USC with Musselman, who knows what they're going to be yet. Minnesota, they stink, so I'm going to put them at the bottom probably. But the rest, it's like a guessing. Like Northwestern's replacing guys, Nebraska's replacing guys, Maryland's replacing guys, but they also just brought in a 5-star center, so it's like, who knows what he does. Iowa, Fran McCaffrey always has a lot of hype, and then shits the bed when it comes to tournament time, so who knows. Wisconsin, Michigan's got a new coach. Dusty May's a hell of a coach. Ohio State, Indiana, is Mike Woodson on the hot seat probably, who knows. So it's really a guessing game after that, like top 4, 5, 6 programs maybe. But yeah, I think 22-9 is probably pretty spot on. They're going to lose games. They're going to lose 1 or 2 that they're not supposed to. They're going to win 1 or 2 that they're not supposed to. So it's going to be a good year regardless. How far do you see them making it in the NCAA tournament? I don't even want to talk Big Ten tournament because that's a crapshoot every year basically. I guess the NCAA tournament is too, but
I think a lot of it is going to come down to, as we see pretty much every year at the tournament, where their seeding is. So assuming if our predictions are right, they're like 21-10, 13-7, kind of that range. I think they're probably be in that kind of 7-10 range. I'm thinking that's where I think they'll end up being, is closer to a 7-10 seed than maybe like a top 4 seed. But at the same time,
toxic game every year.
Oh yeah. I don't think. By the way, I'll just say this: I don't think they're getting Dayton. So I'll just put that out there. Pray. Don't
even put that in the fucking atmosphere. Get that out of here.
No, but so if you're 7-10, then
you said the word Dayton. I felt a cold wind rush through my room.
Hey, listen, me and Chris are the ones that had to drive to and from. So you guys are the lucky ones. But no, but it's if you're in that 7-10 range, then it really comes down to, if you're 7-8, then you're going to be facing that 1 seed, and then if you win, and then you could be facing that 1 seed, and then who knows, if you could end up facing UConn in the second round, and it's just like, well, you're shit out of luck. Or Rutgers can end up being a 10 seed and get a good draw and end up facing a potentially team they could be in the second round and go on a run. So to me, I do think, even though the expectations are, I think for this team at least a second weekend type team, it really comes down to what that seeding is.
Really doing a good impersonation of the Weave here. Trying to, like, I just ask
right.
the question and you just go here and
that's
go,
right.
Listen,
it's political season.
I think.
Yeah. No.
Oh yeah. I think they get a 6 seed and make the Sweet 16. I think that's where I'm thinking right now.
Okay, 6 seed. So that would mean that they'd have to beat the 3 seed, whoever that is, obviously. 11 seed. That's an upset territory too. There, that's 6-11 games are usually.
I think it just depends so much on matchups too. Like, they could be facing, like, I think it was, like, Wisconsin had I think it was a 4 seed last year, but they came into March playing some of the worst basketball of their entire season and got bounced by James Madison. So it really depends on matchups and how well they're playing. But I think they can lock in like a 6 seed as long as they win most of the games that they should.
Has James Madison, like, is there a G5 school that's had a better year in athletics, to be honest?
Yeah,
like,
they lost their coaches and made hell of a hires to replace both of them.
Yeah,
like, they got Preston Spradlin from Morehead State after losing Mark Byington, and they get Bob Chesney for football from Holy Cross. I mean, those are 2 hell of a hires.
I just amazed at what they've been able to do from the G5 level. Someone should pick. I know it's not a media market, but someone should pick them up. Like, if you're the American, fuck it, come on in. Like, but yeah, no, you said Sweet 16?
Yeah.
Okay, Sweet 16. I think that's fair. I think Sweet 16 is probably where they should end up. Now, again, guessing game, tournament. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? I'll say I'm going to go with Craig's prediction. I'm going to say a 7 seed probably. it's that second game. If you could, I think they could upset the 2 seed depending on who it is. I'm just looking through now. Like a prediction has Gonzaga, Iowa State, Auburn, or UConn. Don't want to face UConn. I think the rest are beatable. I think Auburn would be interesting because Bruce Pearl had a hell of an effort for Ace Bailey, and I think Ace Bailey would want to show out in that game. Also, the East bracket is in Newark, so
Our
that would be
travel
pretty
budgets
cool.
are praying.
I'm just saying. But yeah, no, I don't think Dayton's realistic if they're in the tournament at all. Just for the sole fact that there's going to be a little bit of bias towards Rutgers for a change, which is nice. They want to see this team. Everyone wants to see this team. They want them out there as much as possible. So tournament time, even if they're like close to Dayton, I feel like they're just like, yeah, put them in real quick. Like they'll never know. But yeah, no, I think it's gonna be a hell of a season. We've been going on for an hour now. This is a really long podcast. Holy shit!
That flew by.
Any
honestly.
final thoughts before we sign off here?
I guess mine is just buckle up. We're in for a heck of a ride.
I guess it's that between the Jets, the Yankees, kind of the way this Rutgers football season is going. I guess it's just Rutgers basketball. Please save us.
Yeah, we need something. We need something. You know what? That's the crazy part is that this is going to be such an insane year that there's going to be so many people there. There's going to be so many superstar people like on the court side. I don't know who's going to be there, but Honcho was there the other day at practice. I don't know where the hell that came from, but he was there. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know who Honcho was. I had to look up some music, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. But yeah, no, I mean, I think there's going to be so many celebrities at these games. It's going to be insane. Get ready for this roller coaster ride. Buckle up, whatever analogy. There we go. That's the word. Whatever analogy you want to use. But it's going to be up. There are going to be some really high highs. There are going to be some really low lows, and you just got to keep riding with this team. I think it's going to be a great season. I'd be pretty hyped if I'm hyped just to cover these games.
Now,
just to go to these games.
The real question is, are the Nets going to end up with one of these guys? Because you guys are playing pretty well right now.
No, we're getting honest. We're good. We don't need them.
I said this off air. It's so unbelievably Nets to trade for your own future and have control of it finally, and then start winning games to take yourself out of top 5 pick contention.
Jeez. Oh, we didn't do the giveaway. Shit, forgot about that. Well, you know what? Actually, comment Rutgers Madness on this. Well, the season starts in like 3 days. I'm going to let Mike do the giveaway on the next pod. But comment Rutgers Madness on this podcast. Give us a 5-star review. Put Rutgers Madness in the review, and you can win one of these 2 jerseys. Oh, I just dropped everything. Ace Bailey, McEachern, upside down. There you go. You get the premise. There you go. Close enough. Or Dylan Harper, Don Bosco Prep. Not real jerseys, replicas, but they are stitched. They're pretty cool. You'll probably not find them anywhere else. And you'll probably be the only guy at the game with these things because they're just unique. But comment Rutgers Madness in this post or in this video, or comment Rutgers Madness on our when submitting a review for our podcast, whether it be Spotify or Apple or whatever podcasting app you're on. But for me, Craig, Alec, has another edition of Knight Report Podcast signing off.